Fuck me.
Oh,
Wow, look at that cool new intro.
oh, that was really funny to see because I worked endless hours and got really frustrated and then really happy that I made that happen. I did that thing.
Yay, you're just brilliant.
Oh
Good
my God.
woman.
So welcome. You don't see Ramzi. He's not going to be with us today, but I'm Cathy in Vermont in the United States, and Suzi is next to me from Ireland. And so we're going to have a conversation. What I want to ask Suzi, in the groups that I'm in, we know that things are a little challenging in the United States right now. And it's affecting everybody, I know. And in our groups, there are sort of two camps. We have people who want to talk about it, and he did this, and this is happening, and did you see, which is kind of a replay of news bites, and talk about it, and oh my gosh, it's so sad. And then we have the other camp that is let's keep our mind in our work. Let's nurture the things that we love and that make us happy. So since I can do both, I try really hard to do to keep my head in my work, in the good stuff. Can you talk about this?
Absolutely. It's probably a lot easier for me coming from, a beautiful wild Atlantic way over here in West Cork in Ireland, and we have that distance between us, and my heart does go out to people who are struggling at the moment, because there's so many different areas that are affected by some of the new decisions and mandates and things like that are happening in the last couple of weeks. So my feeling is, don't feed the bear. I think we have to be careful which wolf we're feeding. There's that old proverb. And so you have to really be mindful. I think it's important, maybe on some levels, if you really need to know, to be informed of what's going on and gather some data and some facts. But at the same time, you have to have, control over your own attention. So I find that when you get caught up in it, and that it's the getting caught up is what we're really talking about here. Nobody can change the stuff that's happening in the world that we don't like, but it's the getting caught up in it and feeling kind of, affected by it, like stressed by it, and, feeling a visceral response to things is hard on your nervous system, because it's not even right there. It's a news article or an opinion piece or, a soundbite or something like that. And so there's a condition that we've identified over in the mindfulness camp, and it's called continuous partial attention, CPA. And what I try to say to people is just be really, really in charge of your own attention, because what we put our attention on grows. And so it's not like you want to put your head in the sand and forget everything is what's going on. It's like, okay, I understand this is going on, but I'm in charge of my attention, and I'm choosing consciously, how I'm going to respond to that. So it's about becoming responsible and responding to things as opposed to reactionary, because oftentimes media is trying to get a reaction. They're trying to get, it's clickbait, they're trying to grab your attention. And so that's what CPA is about, not allowing your attention being hijacked. And there's lots of ways we can do that. So how do you do it? How do you manage and monitor yourself?
I have my moment of tears when we were together in the UK, and the election had just happened. And because I stayed away from all those things, thinking, oh, it's just not even possible. When I started thinking about it, it really freaked me out. And you guys all helped me through that. So that for me is my example of what not to do, because what I was doing then was, I was ruining the time that was happening at that moment, which was having an incredible visit with incredible people. But I was making up things that might happen in the future. And so that's a waste of energy completely. I see that. Elias Lonsdale did a talk for the new lunar year when we started the year of the wood snake, and I really liked his description of this time. He said it's like walking on the knife's edge, that we need to, it's our responsibility to know what's going on, especially if people around us need help. And that is starting to be the situation. But we have to be incredibly careful every step we take to make sure that our mental health is okay. For me, what that means is I'm not going to watch videos. I will read about the news. I'm not going to let my body go into fight or flight. I did it once. I visited that. It made me remember that I do not like how that feels physically. And I have my projects around me. I have a beading project. I have tons of writing projects, so that I can literally take my attention from over here and bring it over here. And so I can see these beautiful things that are, hey, come on over here, play with me, do this thing. I mean, it's like sometimes I'm forcing myself because it can feel so desperate. But yeah, so what did you call it? Continuous partial
Attention.
So is the partial is that like knowing what's going on but not investing too much in it? What's the partial part mean?
Well, it's just you're only partially engaging in something. You're flicking through it. It's just grabbing, so it's not focused attention would be the other side of that. Mm-hmm. So it's continuously shifting and changing, and it's that sort of sense that when you get, as my kids call it, get in a scroll hole, if I don't go into, some of those social media platforms that much. But when I do, oh my God, there's just so much in there grabbing my attention. It's like, oh, and then suddenly you're down the reel, where the reels are, and that's a real rabbit hole. And it just keeps kind of sending you more and more and more of whatever you're spending more time on, and it's 40 seconds here, 40 seconds there. Oh my God. And so that's continuous partial attention. And you come out of that frazzled. You come out of there kind of, and you look at your watch, or you're like, wow,
yeah,
that was an hour.
Right.
Where did the time go? You forget why you were even in there in the first place. What were you looking for? It's such a massive distraction. So I think it's just being really mindful. Mindfulness, I think, is like your best friend in a situation like this. Living more mindfully, taking mindful moments throughout the day. So being able to kind of grab yourself and stop yourself and consciously disconnect from it, put it down, walk away, and, you work on something else if you're working, or take some time out in nature, or just close your eyes and just go quiet for, a half an hour or something. Really do the complete opposite, like would be the antidote to that.
So, so let me ask you this. Most of the people in my realm are doing that,
Yeah.
being diligent, being disciplined. It's okay to be disciplined about it. Um, what about the people that are truly scared because they're going to the worst outcome, and that's where their mind wants to be? What do you say to those people? Do you
Again, you're projecting kind of, your worst fear on something,
Yeah.
and you're allowing your mind to kind of come up with the worst case scenarios. So you're no longer in the present moment. You're kind of, you're in the future and you're all over the place, or you're harking back to the good old days. The key here is to keep coming back. This is it. This is it. This is it. It's right here, right now, where my attention is, and not kind of getting into projecting what you think could be the worst outcome of all of this. Like it may never happen. So I think there's a real big wake up call, and I think maybe this is what it is. This is what a wake up call looks like. For a lot of us. And we're consumers, so we can put our money where our belief system is. What we believe in, we spend money on, and what we don't believe in, we don't invest in, with our time, with our money, with our attention. So you just have to get very wise about how to navigate. And it really does take discipline. It takes discipline and, consistency and commitment. And I think, like, obviously I'm a meditation teacher, so, this is what I'm always looking at, like with my clients in my classes, in retreats, whatever I'm doing, workshops. It's kind of, where's your attention right now? And how do I keep coming back? How do I become more mindful? How do I take better care of myself? Because it's radical self-care to actually be able to extract yourself from, a stressor that may or may not happen, which is doing untold damage on your nervous system.
Yeah.
And this is it. We've got one go at we've got one life, one body, one mind, one heart. And we've got to nurture it, and we've got to love it, and we've got to take care of each other. Like you said, it's not just us as individuals, but it's, our community, our family, our loved ones, our friends, and be there for each other, support each other through it, not by getting caught up in the drama, but by offering, let's go for a hike, or let's do something, just choose something that's an act of self-care, I would say, like a radical act of self-care. We'll just shift it. Like what shifts your mindset? What's your, when you're not doing crafting or something like that, like what else do you do in your, to give yourself just, oxygen mask, or, to nurture or take care of yourself.
Yeah. And also, I've been trying to, meet with people more, lean into friendships, and have interesting conversations about stuff like this, as opposed to getting stuck in the politics. It's kind of like, if you want to feel good, you need to be mindful about your sleep habits, and if you want to have energy, you need to eat really well. And if you want it to be okay in your head, then we have to, there was something in a show. What show were we watching? Well, it was kind of a violent show, but he talked about the castle in his head, and who lives in that castle.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can have Elias Lonsdale in the castle. We can have Ramzi in the castle. Or you can have politicians in your castle.
Exactly.
Why would you rent them a room?
Precisely. Why give them free rent in your head, in your castle, in your mind, in your heart, your sacred, precious, beautiful heart,
Right.
you know, getting just like muddied over by, just stuff that media is coming out with, like, yeah, really coming back to yourself, the big self. I was just on a call before this one.
You got a big project going on right now.
Yeah, I'm passionate about it. It's a not for profit. It's been happening for 18 years. It's called Feast for the Soul, and I volunteer. I do a couple of meditations during the week, on Zoom, and people come in, and there are lots of other teachers doing it too. And I was just on another call with another teacher, a good friend of mine, Sue, and she shared a video after the meditation. So sometimes we have discussions and share resources, and sometimes we watch something together. And she shared a talk by this guy called John Mack, and his website it's fascinating. Like, he's talking about humanity, the H factor. It's so important, like how in the digital age that we're in and the age of technology, how we're so distracted. Like, it's like separating us from ourselves, from that big self. It's like it's kind of pulling apart. And it looks like we're entering into this kind of arena with virtual living, with virtual community, with virtual kind of imagination, and just all the kind of things that are kind of grabbing our attention, and really the effect that that's having on us outside of that, the long-term effects of it. So as he said himself at the end of the talk, he said, I wouldn't be giving this talk if I hadn't kind of got to the point where I know how to help us out. And I think that's the part that really riled all of us up. We were so excited about it, like that there are solutions, and there are incredible groups of people coming together, and they're talking about this, and they're trying to come up with, different ways of supporting humanity through these times, across the globe, not just in America. And like the final four bubbles, let's say, just to kind of wrap it up, was connection to self, connection to others, connection to nature, and connection to imagination. And I was really stoked by that, I have to say. Like, connection to self is something I, practice all of the time. Connection to others. I love being part of a community. That's why I'm part of the Feast for the Soul. That's why I'm doing this with you. Creating communities is really important to me. Connecting with nature, I do that all the time. It's my kind of way of nurturing myself or nourishing myself, being outside. But the part that just really stoked me was, connection to imagination. Now that brings us into some of the stuff that we were talking about in Spirit Cafe, because to nurture your intuition and your creativity, and to access those kind of alpha brain waves and moving into delta, it does require a real spark of your imagination and visualization, and it can really lead us out. And I think we were talking before we went live, but you were telling me about some of the art that you've been creating, and just how that art can be medicine. And that's what John Mack was talking about in that last video that we were just watching. But it summed everything that I've been passionate about up, and I felt like, okay, we're on the right teams over here.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about that? Because I think it's really one of the key. Everybody's got the self, others, and nature part kind of, worked out. But imagination, I think, is a little not spoken for enough, or maybe not overrated yet. Like,
I agree. So let's see. I did. I've been a painter my whole life,
yeah,
and they were commodities in advertising and design. So they were for a purpose. And then I started working in this realm, which is, you know, the more mystical realm. And now I'm trying to convey a sense of something, an idea that's hard to even put into words.
Yeah.
And so the paintings that I've been doing now are more like downloaded gifts that come from my imagination when I'm quiet, when I'm sort of holding a container for what it is I want this art to accomplish. So
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be, you know, a placeholder for multiple ideas. Well, I started making these pieces, and the further down the road I get, the more interesting it seems to become. I hear people, you know, it's different for me because I receive them and then they go on paper. And then the people who look at them say, you know, oh, I got this, I got this, I got this. And those are things that I wasn't even thinking of. Those weren't part of the my purpose, but it was what they needed to see. So I've been thinking about there's a thing that happens when you look at something that came out of an imagination. The imagination, I don't know where it comes from. Um, that then the other person gets something completely different that I never thought of. Um, and this happened. There's one little painting that I did for our astrology forecast just for 2025, and um, she's a simple little sort of energy goddess. We call her the cosmic creatrix,
Nice.
um, and that painting has gotten more, you know, feedback, input from other people than all the other ones I've done. And then about 2 weeks ago, a woman who's been in some art classes with me, but no one that I don't really know her. She wrote a message on WhatsApp and told me all these revelations that came to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you know, that I was there with her, and we talked about these things, and it was about um, past lives. It was about um, sort of dissolving into the mist so that we're all one. She had all these ideas that came, and she attributed it to being with me. And that's the part that I didn't understand because I wasn't with her. We weren't speaking. And she said, well, it was because of a few things you said, but also because of this little painting. And I've been writing about it and thinking about this. There's something about, you know, this, what is your imagination? You know, we call it it's our liminal space. It's our, it's where we have access to every single thing, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the Akashic record. It's all time. Um, it's any place. It can be in the stars. And so it just seems so powerful to me,
Mm-hmm.
that we can go there and we can meet each other there. Um, in these times when I lay down and if I'm worried about my son or the news or whatever, I go into my imagination
Mm-hmm.
and ask to be shown something that will help, and I always am.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm starting to understand how I don't understand it. It's starting to become obvious that we do meet each other there also.
Yeah.
Um,
Breadcrumbs, Cathy, breadcrumbs. Well, you know, from where I have studied or what I've been reading, you know, when we talk about higher states of consciousness, you know, we're very aware of kind of fight or flight. We've talked about that, we've talked about waking, dreaming, sleeping. We know those ones. They're the first four. And then we move into something else, which is restful awareness is something I like to talk about, or getting beyond the limitations of the ego encapsulated identity that we are. And so through transcendence, through meditation, we start to expand and go beyond kind of our belief systems, maybe our conditioning, all the things that kind of keep us stuck or limit us, limiting beliefs that we carry.
Mm-hmm.
And so, through meditation, through art, through music, through lots of different ways of where we focus our attention, we can get beyond transcendences to go beyond. And so the higher states of consciousness that go beyond that, okay, you get that part where you're Atma Darshan, we talk about glimpsing the soul. So in some meditations, you're just glimpsing something. You kind of come out of it and you go, "Oh, what was that?" In extended periods, when you do something like you're journeying, you're really taking them on this journey. And it's like, where did the emerald waterfall come from? How did I visualize this? Whatever it is, these colors, these shapes, these, fairies or people or, a loved one or whomever. And so in higher states of consciousness, like beyond the initial transcendence or glimpsing the soul Atma Darshan, it's like, intuitive response. And so I come out of that practice and I can start to hear a little guidance within myself. I can hear the whispers of my soul because I've quietened down the mind. And then from there, from the intuitive response, it goes into, the creative response. And that's really cool because I love discovering this kind of map of the territory because it explained a lot to me. Because where does that spark of creativity come from, like you just said, which is the answer to your question about how am I going to solve this challenge with my neighbor, for example. There's a challenge about a fence or something, and you're looking for creative solution for something else that's going on in your life. This is where we access that information. That's a creative response. And then from there it goes into visionary response. Now, John Mack, the guy I was talking about, he's a visionary. He's an artist. He's a poet. He's a writer. So he's always hanging out over here in that field. He's in the field more than he's over there worrying about who said what on what TV show. He's not there. He's over here, solution oriented. Okay, we know we have a lot of challenges in the world. What are the solutions? How can I kind of nourish that part? And so he's an artist, he's a visionary, he's a writer, and I'm not saying that everybody has to become any of those things, just know that there is a place that is available. And the information is there when you work with kind of keeping your intentions pure and your attention you start to manage your attention. And after the visionary response, so visionaries are people who really will come up with massive solutions for things that are going on in the world. They've invented things, and it doesn't necessarily come when they're in the practice. It's just that they're now wired for a visionary response. And that's a spontaneous solution emerges, when they least expect it. I heard a few people in a podcast I listened to today, and they said a lot of the cool stuff comes when they're in the shower. It's when you're not trying is when it comes. If you're sitting there trying, you're using the wrong part of your brain. You're only going to get information that's already been kind of put in there. For something new and original thought, original kind of visions, it's coming from this expanded state of awareness. And so beyond the visionary response is the sacred response. And that's often people's goal when they come to meditation or retreats or something like that. They're looking for that unity consciousness, that kind of unified field of pure potentiality, unified field of all, where it all is. It's where we all hang out and gather, probably when we're having a lucid dream, or
Yeah.
who knows, I'm not going to kind of like, it's the experiences of all those higher states is different for everybody. This is just a kind of a rough framework, let's say.
Mhm.
And you can't, what I love about it is you can't have a spiritual experience because you want it.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I was teaching in our Friday group last week. We were not teaching, but talking about spiritual experiences that happen through meditation. We talk often about, okay, we've got like, the physical benefits, we've the mental benefits, but there's a whole lot of spiritual benefits that come, and they're so personalized, they're so individualized, and they're sacred. To me, they're actually sacred experiences, and it's a story that I'm really interested in.
Mhm.
Love asking people, so what led you to this line of work, or what led you to write that book, or and that's when people are having expanded states of awareness.
Yeah.
Nothing can explain it. Out of body experience, near death experience, telepathic communication, extrasensory perception, like, mystical, like you were talking about, like,
Mhm.
and I think that's much more who we are.
And it's hard to um it's hard to explain, it's like those when you're for me, shower for sure, outside walking,
Mhm.
sometimes driving a car. It's like your mind is doing something that it knows how to do, and so the thought piece is kind of like busy over here doing something easy, and then for me, I guess it feels like maybe time got a little bit slippy. I haven't really paid attention for the whole walk, but I know I was out there for an hour. Then I know that I've been to another place.
Mm.
And then it also seems like you have to have the presence of mind to recognize, oh, I that gift, that hour, maybe next time pay attention a little bit, um, get curious. I call it my gypsy eyes when I'm like looking around that inner castle, to see what's there.
Yeah, like there's a few different kind of frameworks that we put around, experiencing higher states of consciousness, and another one is how we relate in nature,
Mhm.
and like in the intuitive, it's almost like, when you're in nature, you feel called by a tree, or maybe it's a little twig, or just something there. I remember being on a retreat with a group. We were in India, I think it was, and we near the Himalayan foothills, and we were on this kind of hike, and oh my gosh, this tree, I literally heard a message from the tree.
Mhm.
Like, it called me over,
Mhm.
and I was like, am I really doing this? So I was like, okay. And I went over and I was like, how do I communicate with you? I'm not like used to chatting with the tree, but I just followed my instinct, and I put my hands and I brought my heart to it. And I remember just really connecting with it and pausing. And literally I got this kind of, I don't like the word download of information, but it was like an inflow of information and visuals that just came to me, and I was like, whoa, that was kind of instant, and afterwards, like I talked a little bit about with some of the locals, about one of the visuals that I got was so clear, and she was able to clarify it for me, at the time, you know, relating to that location. But the other part of the message was that there was somebody within our group that needed to be connected to this tree, and that this was going to, and I was like, okay. So I just gently tapped that other person on the shoulder and I said, hey, do you want to connect with the tree? And she was like, really? Like, and you know, I said, don't ask me. I said, I don't know. I said, just do what feels natural to you, be instinctive, you know. And I said, try, maybe put your forehead on it, you know. And I didn't want to kind of get in the way between her and her experience. So I kind of wandered off. And later I asked her, I said, so how did it go? And she said, oh, no, nothing. That, yeah. And I said, oh, and I was, honestly, I was a bit disappointed because I thought, I wish she could have had that. My God, I just got this inflow of information. And I said, did you communicate? Did you ask it something? And she said, yeah, I did. But she said, I couldn't hear anything, you know. What was really interesting was, as it turned out, in this particular location, I was sharing a room with that lady. And because, you know, we stay in these little chalets up in the mountains. It's very pretty. It's an incredible organic farm. And oh my God, they have everything there. It's so divine. Like pineapples and kiwis and you name it, it's growing there. Like it's really lush. And we're sleeping in amongst there. And anyway, we're asleep. And I have to get up at like 5 to lead the meditation for sunrise. So I always practice myself, just sitting up in bed before I go to open the space for everybody else. And I was doing my I was just sitting in my bed meditating. And the next thing, she was like, I could hear her, like she was shuffling around. She was kind of sniffling. And in the end, I gave up and I opened my eyes. I said, hey, are you okay? And she was like, I had this dream, and it was the tree, and it was really intense, and it was really profoundly personal, like for her. Like this wasn't just like, oh, I had a dream of a tree. It was very, very moving. And she kept saying to me, I have to go back. And I was like, that's kind of far away. And we're going in the other direction today. We're leaving here. Like my logistic brain was working, you know, and so I just trusted. I said, okay, well, look, I trust. I have impeccable trust, and I can surrender. What's going to happen has to happen here, and let's just allow it to kind of land. And that was me probably trying to, you know, like I was like, what am I going to do here? And so we went down. There's another chalet where we went. All the group meets up there to do the meditation, and we're all sat inside this little wooden chalet and amongst all the trees. We're meditating. I guided it, and you know, it was coming to the end of our time together. We'd been together for like 10 days, and I was saying, you know, I think we'd one more stop to do. Like we were on day 8 at least, and I just, you know, I was guiding it away, and the next thing, this banging sound just hit the door. It was a wooden door. And I was like, oh my God, it sounds like a bird just flew into the door. And then it happened a second time. And I was like, oh, God almighty, what is going on? And I knew I could feel it. The whole room was disrupted. So we stopped the meditation. Well, I kind of wrapped it up early enough. I didn't keep the minute because I could feel everybody it was very distracting what happened with the noise. And I said, okay, let's come back. And the same person was like really upset. She said, it's trying to get my attention. That was for me. That's another messenger for me. I've got to go. I have to get back there. And I said, okay, you can take one of our drivers. You know, I give full permission. I said, you're going to have to figure it out by yourself. You're going to have to ask the people who own the land that we were on, can you go back on that land? But I kind of felt like she had to do it herself. I didn't do it for her. And she headed off. And I said, ideally, if you could be back by about 11, you know, because we would have been planning to hit the road at about 10. But I said I'd give her enough time because it was at least 40-minute drive there and back. So I was like, just take your time, and we'll be waiting when you get back to leave. I said, have your bags packed. I'll have us out of the rooms, and And it was phenomenal what happened for this person when she came back and she told us what happened when she went back to the tree. She was given clear guidance, just the clearest of guidance. It was so visual for her.
Mm-hmm.
All of the things that she had to do were there. And she went back and there was a big nail stuck into the bark of this tree that had been put there. I think something to do with maybe if there was lightning or thunder or something. I'm not sure why they would put a big nail into the tree. But she pulled it out. She spent ages. She even picked up the tools from the owners of the farm that we were staying in before she left. She knew what she needed.
Hmm.
And she pulled out the nail, and she kind of cleaned, as if she was cleaning a wound in the bark of the tree.
Wow.
And we knew from when we were yesterday, the day before, I mean, that some of the herbs nearby that were growing were healing herbs. And she put the herbs into the gash that in the tree. And then they had given her a white kata, a white scarf, and she wrapped it around the bark and she tied it. And it was like she put a bandage on.
Wow.
But it was her own. This is what was phenomenal. What was happening for the tree was actually happening within herself because she was listening
Mm-hmm.
to her guidance. And my friend who owns the farm had sent a local monk down there, and he was doing all of these prayers. He doesn't speak any English, so there's all this prayers going on, and then the driver stayed and he held space for her, so she wasn't on her own. But she said at the end she sat and with her back to the tree, and she just could really feel, she said, something really reorganized within her system. And she just knew the timing when it was complete. And they thanked the monk. I think they gave him an offering. They took off in the car coming back to us. And then there was this high point where you have an incredible view, and she asked the driver to stop. And she was wearing this incredible bangle, and I had been admiring it for the whole time she was on the trip. It was this clear quartz, beautiful. It was just so beautiful. And she had bought it in Japan or something. It was very dear to her. And she had that on her hand, but she had the big nail in her hand that she'd taken out of the tree. So she stood out of the car and she went to throw the nail, and the bangle went off and it came apart. And the nail was just surrounded with this clear quartz crystal shower. And whatever way the sun caught it, she just said it was the last piece. And it was really there's a lot more to that story. I won't that was personal to her. I'm not going to get into that. I'm giving you more the nuts and bolts of the story, but that's what I'm talking about. That's when nature comes alive. That's when you're communing with nature as a healer. And I know I kind of rambled on a little bit, but it's something that had a huge impact on me. It had such a huge impact on not just me, it had it on everybody who traveled together that time. We all shared in that experience. Because there was physical healing involved as well, because she had curvature of her spine, as well. And so she had a lot of challenges. And I spoke to a healer friend of mine, and we were talking about it afterwards, a day or two later. And she looked it up from, how she looks up information. And she said that at a point in time when a person has to choose between the masculine and the feminine, the mother or the father, if the parents separate, that it can create curvature of the spine. And that's what happened when she was a child. She had the parents had separated, and the other siblings went with the mother, and she just couldn't bear to see the father on his own, so she went with him. But it created a very challenging relationship with the mother, obviously after that. And yeah, there was just there were just layers and layers and layers. There was so much depth to that. But what I really admired was her commitment to her self-care, her commitment to her personal journey, her commitment to healing, and like, you don't have to go to India for that to happen. That'll happen at home as well. That'll happen in your sleep. But I think just being aware, being intuitive, tuning in, connecting with other people and tuning in together, because we're here to help each other, And
when one of us heals, we all heal. When any suffering evaporates, it saves all of us. Have you read the book Ways of Attending, Ian McGilchrist?
No.
Okay, well, you have to read the book. Everybody needs to read the book.
Okay.
I'm telling you. It's exactly that. It's ways of attending.
Ways of attending.
Ways of attending. It's a compilation of a larger book that he wrote. But it's very short. It's small. It takes 2 or 3 hours to read. But it kind of changes everything. It's about where we have put our attention and how, and that the world is talking to us, and it's alive, and we can join into that sort of musical piece that is just out there waiting for us to gracefully enter into. And there's so much well-being waiting for us when we know that a tree might have a message. It's a beautiful little book. I'm reading he has a huge one that he wrote after that. That's 3 different books. And it's feeding my work. We're coming to the end. What I'm working on now with Ways of Attending is Art 5 with Janet Connor. We're working with our intuition. This one we're calling it divination, but really it's where do you put your attention? And can you feel that you are connected everywhere? And then once you can feel that, it sort of changes everything. We can't change we can't treat our planet the way we have been if we know that we're connected in the way that we are. When you pay attention, when you walk outside, everything is divine, everything is sacred. Everything is just waiting for us to heal us, right? So she healed her back by taking a nail out of the tree. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And she's not a what would you call it, natural English speaker. That's not her native tongue. I've asked her, like, would she write it? Would she record that story? And she gave me permission to share it because like, it's just, I've seen so many things like that happen. I've seen it. I see it constantly in the kind of work that I'm doing. I see so much transformation taking place, but it takes place because of people's commitment to self-care.
Right.
And inquiry, self-inquiry, self-care. Like, we have to begin with ourselves and then, move into like community from there. And then
she got a second chance because she said, no, I didn't hear the tree, but then, it came after her again in her dream.
Yeah.
And instead of writing it off she went into a more healthy life.
yeah, her life changed significantly after that trip, and I stay in touch with her. I hear from her every now and then, but I hear that like that's constant in my world. You know, that's what
Yes.
happens because you know people are looking for solutions. They're looking for how do I do this? Because you can't. I don't think we can just do it on our own. I don't think it's like going to work out if you just go and live in a cave for 12 years. Like it can do, but you know, um it definitely works like to have support.
Yeah.
Some friends of mine are in India at the moment and they're going through Ayurveda treatments, you know, panchakarma, and I'm just flabbergasted by their experiences. Like with Ayurveda, it's going through it at such a deep, deep, deep level. It's not superficial. You might have heard the word Ayurveda in relation to maybe a supplement or, you know,
Way of eating.
or even like something like a massage kind of technique or something. But it is an ancient system
Mhm.
of healing, and it's a consciousness-based system of healing. And that's what I love about it. It's 5,000 years old, you
And
know?
you work with people, right? You,
Yeah.
so people can find you on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing a workshop for the people in the feast on Saturday. So it's a lovely workshop. It's an hour and a half. It's like an introduction, but even if you've been doing Ayurveda, you can come along and really maybe deepen your understanding because it can initially feel like a very complex subject, and people can get a bit like, whoa, too much, can't
Yeah.
follow it. You've kind of got to persist with it and just apply, like I say, like a teaspoon, like a bite-sized amount of information at a time. And then over time, you become so familiar with who you are. Like my husband is one of my favorite subjects. And you know, I was able to talk to him about it the other day. We were there and we were talking, and he can express himself in his doshas, and he's never read an Ayurvedic book in his life. Now he gets to live with me, but
Yeah.
you know, he's no choice in the matter, as he would say. But he, but I loved how he gets it. Like, you know, he
Yeah.
can relate. Like, because I was kind of forcing him to listen to something about my doshas. You know, I have two doshas, and it's about like not liking the cold. And
Yeah.
I was like, listen to this. You know, because he said that he's like, oh my God, you're so sensitive to the weather. You know, and I said, I actually am. I get
Yeah.
my it really affects my system if I get cold. So I'm always like preventing myself from, you know, going out in the freezing cold or getting wet, or, you know, I live in Ireland. Come on, like for God's sake. But it's really interesting because he's got that fire in him.
Mhm.
So but he's so sharp. I couldn't believe how much he really got it when he was not explaining, but describing himself, let's say,
Mm.
through the Ayurvedic lens. And I was like, it's the kind of gift that keeps on giving, because whenever you're in doubt about something that you're relating to, like it could be an organization, it could be a country, a team member, or another person, family member, I always say to the person, well, what do you think their dosha is? You know,
Mm.
let's see what could be, where's the imbalance stemming from, you
Yep.
know, because it's the good thing with Ayurveda, it's giving you the same kind of answer every time when you use it as a sort of a self-inquiry module or something. I don't know what the word is, but when you use that lens, I suppose, to look a little closer, you know,
Yeah.
um, because we know when we're feeling balanced, you know, and we know when we feel we have lots of energy and we're, you know, feeling that vitality, and we also know when we're like, oh my God, stuck,
Mhm.
frustrated,
Mhm.
anxious, all the other kind of qualities. Like, so yeah, as you can tell, I get very excited. Are you ready to
Well,
retreat?
it is It's exciting, and so people can, find out about working with you on
Yeah.
your website?
Yeah,
Where
it's all on the website there. The workshop is on Saturday at this time, 5 my time, 5 9 a.m. Pacific till
9 AM Pacific, 12 noon, and what's the workshop about?
it's an intro to Ayurveda. So it's really good for people who are starting out or people who have a bit of an idea but might be a bit confused, looking for clarity.
And
So
then
yeah.
you're gonna build on that, or how does it
Well,
work?
yeah. Well, there's a retreat coming up in May in Spain, which we're very excited about. We've only got like one spot left in that.
Ugh.
It's divine. Come with us, Cathy. Come
Oh
to
my
Spain. It's a whole week immersion. Like
god.
it's such a oh my gosh, it's the best gift you'll ever give yourself. I keep saying that to my friend who's going through her Ayurveda in India at the moment. I'm like, you're so kind to yourself. This is the
Yeah,
gift of a lifetime to take the
yeah.
time out and, reset your system, take some downtime, recalibrate, and just get back into balance and harmony through the elements with yourself
Mm,
and then move forward from that place. Because traditionally, through Ayurveda, you would take, twice a year, usually at the equinoxes, is when you would do that sort of, cleansing or detoxification, purification of your system. And it kind of resets you for the change of the season. So when the seasons are changing is a
mhm,
really good time for that.
mhm.
Um, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. So yeah, exciting. I just love it. For me, when I discovered it, it was like getting the manual, I was like,
Mhm.
aha, this is it. It was like the ultimate information. And
When did you discover it? How did that come to you?
I was reading books by Deepak Chopra.
Okay.
Um, he mentioned it a lot in the books. I was given a
Yeah.
present book initially. I wouldn't have known who Deepak Chopra was if he, stood in front of me. I had no idea. And a friend of mine was quite moved by one of his books and showed up at my door gave me his copy, which was all underlined and highlighted. And he was like, "Hey, I want you to have this." And I was like, "Wow."
Well, he was kind of a superstar over here for a while. You don't
Yeah,
hear about him as much anymore, but, in my realm,
yeah,
what, 20, 30, 35 years ago, he was.
yeah. Well, I suppose one of his early books, like Quantum Healing, was kind of a bit of a revelation in its own right back
Yeah.
in the day. And I know there's a revised version of that book out now. But what I loved about it when I read a few more of his books and I thought, wow, it just all keeps coming back to this Ayurveda, meditation, yoga, these sister sciences and the ancient kind of wisdom. And I loved that he was kind of medically trained as well. I felt, the way you kind of
Right.
trust the doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. But then my Irish mind was like, oh God, this guy must be like a total charlatan, because
Hollywood.
I was like, oh, so this is what I'm talking about, intention and attention. I
Yes.
set the intention. I said, I closed the book. I remember going, if this is for real, I want to meet the guy. I'm going to have to meet this one, otherwise, he'll just go on the pile with everybody else who's, written a book and then you forget about it a few months later. And I swear to God, Cathy, those breadcrumbs we were talking about, like it was just like a sequence of events. When I talk about it or write about it, it sounds like I'm making it up. It really does.
Well, your life is filled with those.
Yeah,
And
that's
then this led me over here, and then I just did this, and
and sure enough. So from the moment I set that intention, that I think it would have been around August, by October, I was standing in front of him in California, and I was like, "Whoa, how did this happen?" Because I did not have any ties with California, or it was really random how it came to be. So when things like that happen, I start to really pay attention.
yeah.
And it was from the moment I started to apply those ancient self-care tools to my life, and take it. Like, I was running a business, I was an interior designer, I was very busy, I was a mom of two, I had a lot going on. So I wasn't able to kind of totally get stuck into it. Like, I was doing a lot of other stuff, but the coincidences couldn't, like, it was so right in front of me at the time. I remember I was getting subtle like intuitions, kept getting them. If I was meditating or something, I would get this little, like the little light bulb going on. And at the time, I wasn't confident or trusting enough of things like that. So one day I got really frustrated, and in the middle of the practice, I opened my eyes. I was like, listen, if you're trying to give me some guidance here, you're going to have to come down and appear and put in a neon sign or something, because I don't have the guts to follow it, and that was the truth. And I'm busy. I've got a business to run. Like, oh my God. Well, when you demand something from the universe, expect it to, because within an hour, that my place was paid for by somebody else.
Wow.
Yeah. And she just said, just get your own flight. Like, I won't get into that story. It's all in a chapter that I've been writing about. But like, so then obviously after all those things start happening at that kind of frequency and pace, I was like, well, there must be something in this, and
There
then
certainly is.
I was like, wow. And I was like a sponge. I was absorbing it all. I was really, really interested. And people kept saying to me at the time when I went on one of the retreats, I could see you teaching this, or you could. And I was like, you must be joking. Like, who would I teach? Like, no, it was so far removed from my life. And again, it was 11/11/11. I'll always remember that date. That I made the decision to close the business and really focus my attention on the teachings.
Wow.
And I invested everything I had in learning and studying and really, really going for that deep, 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 deep dive. And I've never stopped. Like, I'm still learning, I'm still studying, I'm still diving, but I feel so lucky. Like, I feel so blessed, because these tools are, they've helped for the last 5,000 years, and they'll keep helping it for the next 5,000. And I just feel lucky that I managed to catch the wave, as we're going along here. So,
well, and yeah. I can hear your excitement. And I mean, you are joyful when you start to talk about this stuff. So, I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah, true.
Because then, study with Suzi. It'll rub off. Why do you think I hang out here?
Well, we're all rubbing off each other. There's so much, like, and it's so transparent. I think that's what I love about it. I love that we're all able to just be who we are.
Yeah.
We're not all trying to be the same. There's only one Cathy, and she's precious, and she's creative, and she's patient, and she's funny, and there's only one Ramzi, and and we all have, like, you couldn't get three more different people if you tried. I always think when you look at the three of us. But I think the common denominator here is, Spirit Cafe, it's got something very special. We've got a lot coming up, in the next couple of months, different conversations to have, different programs to share. We'll probably do Meet Your Spirit Inquirer with Ramzi, and, maybe some blind vision with me, and, Cathy will be doing her tarot and sacred image. Yeah. Anything there that you want to mention before we hang up the phone? The hour went fast, I'll say that for nothing.
The hour went fast. Reach out to either one of us, or Ramzi too. You see our website, spiritcafe.ca, and Suzi's Wake Up Little Suzi, SUZI.
Yeah.
And I'm at hersacredimage.com. And we're all about community, collaboration, spending time in our imaginal realms, touching in on the magic, because that
Yeah,
is the good place to be right now. Yeah.
exactly. And it's taking it from that interior, it's the inner experience and expressing it in the external. It's really like, that transition from what's happening on the inside to
Yeah.
bringing it out to the outside. And I think that's what the world needs right now. It needs compassion. It needs more imagination. It needs more love. It
More
needs a lot more.
beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to just keep that's our attention is over here. That's where it is.
Mhm. I'm going to be practicing that. Thank you for talking with me. What a
Thanks for viewing, whoever's out there
yes,
watching. I'm very grateful for you.
whoever's out there. So should I push Ramzi's usually here to do all this? Are we
Yeah.
saying goodbye for the hour?
Yeah. Goodbye for now. Thanks for joining. See you next 2 weeks time. Isn't it? Every
Yeah.
every second Thursday.